She thought he was the plumber, he turned out to be her missing piece. She stood barefoot on the cold kitchen tile, staring at water creeping across the floor, her phone buzzing with messages she didn't have the energy to answer. Life had already taken so much from her, and now even her home seemed to be giving up. She whispered to herself, of course. Of course this would happen today. When the knock came at the door, she wasn't ready for how one small moment of kindness would quietly change everything she thought she knew about love, timing, and hope. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartfelt stories that remind you there's still good in the world, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. This is Heartfelt Moments, where small acts of kindness lead to life-changing stories. The morning had started badly for Emily. She was 34, living alone in a small suburban house in Ohio, and still learning how to breathe after the loss of her husband 2 years earlier. Grief didn't announce itself anymore. It just showed up in quiet ways, empty coffee mugs across from her at the table, half-finished conversations in her head, and mornings where getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. That day, the pipes under her kitchen sink burst without warning. Water sprayed everywhere, soaking the cabinets, the mail on the counter, and her socks. She panicked, grabbed towels, and called the first plumbing service she could find online. They told her someone would be there within the hour. She tied her hair into a messy bun, pulled on an old sweater, and tried to calm herself. She hated asking for help. Since her husband passed, she'd convinced herself she had to handle everything alone. Needing someone felt like failing. When the doorbell rang, she opened it without looking through the peephole. Standing there was a man about her age, tall, with kind eyes and a worn brown jacket. He held a small toolbox in one hand and offered a gentle smile. "Plumbing service," he said. "You called about a leak?" She stepped aside quickly. "Yes, thank you for coming so fast. It's a mess." He walked in, took in the chaos, and nodded calmly. "Don't worry. We'll get this under control." She didn't even question his use of we. She was too busy feeling relieved that someone capable had arrived. He knelt under the sink, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. The water slowed, then stopped completely. As he worked, they made small talk. Nothing deep. Just weather, traffic, how cold the winters had been lately. His voice was steady, comforting in a way she hadn't realized she missed. At one point, he noticed a framed photo on the counter, a smiling man holding Emily close. "Is that your husband?" he asked gently. "Yes," she said, her throat tightening. "He passed away." "I'm sorry," he replied, quietly and sincerely. "That kind of loss stays with you." She looked at him then, surprised. There was no pity in his eyes. Just understanding. When he finished fixing the pipe, he stood up and wiped his hands. "That should hold. I'll double-check everything." She offered him a cup of coffee as a thank you. He hesitated, then smiled. "Sure." They sat at the small kitchen table, steam rising from their mugs. For the first time in a long while, Emily didn't feel the urge to fill the silence. It felt safe. When she asked how much she owed, he looked confused. "Oh, I don't work for the plumbing company," he said. Her heart skipped. "Wait, what?" He laughed softly. "I'm sorry. I should have explained. I live 2 houses down. I was walking by and saw water pouring out from under your door. When you opened the door and mentioned a leak, I just stepped in." She stared at him, stunned. "So you're not the plumber?" "No," he said. "I'm Daniel. I'm a high school shop teacher. Fixing things is kind of my thing." Embarrassment washed over her, followed by something warmer. "I just assumed." "It's okay," he said. "Honestly, I'm glad I could help." She insisted on paying him, but he shook his head. "Just promise me you won't try to carry everything by yourself," he said gently. "No one's meant to do that." Those words stayed with her long after he left. Over the next few weeks, they ran into each other often. At the mailbox. On evening walks. Once at the grocery store, where he helped her reach something off a high shelf. Each time, conversation came easier. Daniel never pushed. He never rushed her grief or tried to replace what she'd lost. He simply showed up, asking how her day was, remembering small details, offering help without making her feel weak. Slowly, Emily noticed the heaviness lifting. She laughed more. She slept better. She felt seen again, not as a broken woman, but as someone still worthy of care. One evening, months later, they sat on her porch watching the sun dip below the trees. Emily realized something that surprised her. Loving Daniel didn't mean loving her husband any less. It meant her heart had learned how to grow around kindness. "I thought you were just the plumber," she said, smiling. Daniel chuckled. "And I thought I was just fixing a pipe." They looked at each other, knowing the truth ran deeper than that. Kindness had opened a door neither of them expected. Not with grand gestures or perfect timing, but with a simple willingness to help a stranger. In the end, Emily learned that sometimes the missing piece in our lives doesn't arrive with a dramatic entrance. Sometimes it knocks on the door, toolbox in hand, and reminds us that healing often begins with a small act of kindness. If this story touched your heart, carry it with you today. Hold the door open. Offer help. Be patient with someone's pain. You never know whose life you might change, or how kindness might quietly change your own.